I wanna say to my sisters and brothers, keep the faith when the storms rise and the wind.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again with TBI Talk. I'm your host. I'm Lindy Boone-Michaelis. I am a mother of a TBI survivor and one of the founders of Ryan's Reach. And we decided to start a podcast so that we could have more outreach to the TBI community. And I'm enjoying this quite a bit, getting to talk to people that I've met along the way in our journey. My son Ryan incurred a brain injury in 2001. So I've been on this walk for a long time. And today I am so excited and really delighted to get to share with you somebody that's been on this journey with us for almost the entire time, probably about 2002. I'm going to be introducing you to Mark Desmond. In fact, why don't I introduce you to Mark right now and say hello to Mark.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Desmond, and thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. I met Mark because back when Ryan was just moving home, we realized that we had all of 2 hours of speech, 2 hours of OT, and 2 hours of occupational therapy being provided for Ryan. And I thought, well, that's 6 hours a week. What are we supposed to do with the rest of the hours of the week? And he needed a lot more help. And a very kind mom of another TBI survivor I met along the way. I can't remember her name, but she handed me a flyer for High Hopes. And I looked into it and we signed Ryan up to go to High Hopes head injury program in Tustin, which was a day program and provided all kinds of therapy, a lot of other TBI survivors there. And we started Ryan on a very small scale because he was still kind of new to brain injury and didn't have a lot of energy and a lot of attention. But he's been going there ever since. And I want to ask Mark, I know your story of how High Hopes came to be, but I'd really like you to just tell our listeners and some of our viewers, we're both audio and on a YouTube. So would you just talk about how you, and this was 50 years ago almost, I think?
It's coming up next
Yeah.
will be our 50th year, and seems like about 10 minutes, but
Yes. How did you even find yourself in the position of getting involved with TBI?
well, how I started was I started teaching high school at a very young age and coaching swimming. And like a good coach, I control the lives of my swimmers. That meant getting them jobs, lifeguard jobs and such. And the brain injured families wanted to rent the pool one day, and I said sure. I had all these pools in the city of Costa Mesa, and I taught at Estancia, and eventually Orange Coast College, and the none of my 40 swimmers were available to oversee these families, and then so I was elected and started working with them and in the pool, and later my swimmers were available, but I liked the group, and very fortunate. One boy started walking that wasn't supposed to walk again, and I'd written it, and eventually the Today Show came out and did a segment, and here we are, lame walking at young age of 20 or myself, and they're 21 years old, and that's how I got started, and started inventing programs and developing High Hopes, and it kind of grew a little since then.
Your life took a turn and you just followed it because it was just pretty miraculous what was possible in the pool. That was the first thing, but you do a lot more at High Hopes now than putting people in the pool, it's grown since I started bringing Ryan 20 years ago. You've doubled the size, and it's increased in the kinds of therapies and wonderful things like the robotic machines that you use.
Yes, service day treatment program now, and we're also the first brain injury program in the United States. Through those years, we keep inventing new ways or better ways to help people, and we don't give up on anybody. And thanks to support like Ryan's Reach, your family, and others, we've been able to help several thousand people over the years, which includes robotics and OT, PT, everything you can think about, plus our own unique way of doing things.
And as we started coming to high hopes and seeing some improvements in Ryan, and also realizing that Ryan's story was known because of who my dad is, Pat Boone, and we decided that we wanted to start Ryan's Reach, our foundation. And the best way for us to help other people was to support High Hopes, because we could raise the money. We had the platform, and we had my dad to host events. And we could raise money, but we thought, now how's the best way we can spread that money to reach the most people? And it made sense to us that we just jump in and see what we could do to help High Hopes. We started off by donating things like you needed a van. I think we donated a van once, and we had donated some computers. We definitely donated a whole lot of equipment. But then we started giving towards scholarships so that students, you call them students, which I love because they're learners and they're people that are recovering their lives after a TBI, but just helping to make it possible for them to attend High Hopes, because nobody has a lot of money after a TBI. I mean, hardly anybody can afford what it costs to go to High Hopes or any place. And even though you're nonprofit and you make it the most economical option, they still need help. So that's what Ryan's Reach has been doing, to come alongside High Hopes. But High Hopes is the place to go, where when you've used your 6 hours of therapy that you get, you will take anybody at any stage, and it can be right after a brain injury or when they are, stable enough to attend, or it can be years and decades, even sometimes after their brain injury. That's what I really appreciate.
Yes, we're here to serve, and you name it. We've had the people come from all over the world, all over the country out here, and scholarship is our lifeblood. Everybody here, 100% everybody here receives something, a level of scholarship assistance, and the community, yourselves, Ryan's Reach, and has made all that possible.
Mm-hmm.
We're very thankful, and we get great results.
Yeah, there's always something exciting happening for the students there, and you're very hands-on too. You get up there and you walk people, with another staff member maybe on the other side, but you're not just directing, you're actually involved in developing the programs and actually doing the therapy with the students.
Yes, I work with everybody every day here at High Hopes, and if you're not doing hands-on, it's very difficult to understand what their needs are. And I design the programs and put them in the right slots and make corrections as we go and keep it. So it's definitely hands-on.
There is a fabulous machine. I got to give credit to my daughter for kind of learning about it, and then my parents for donating the first one to High Hopes, and it's called the Local Mat. I think there's even a picture of my son Ryan in it. It's been really helpful for him, people in wheelchairs. But describe the Local Mat.
Well, the Local Mat is a product of Sweden. It's a robotic walking machine that assists The reason I went to robotics, as well as everything else we do, is because it's only one of me. Uh, and robotics allows me to help more people at the same time, and it repeats that motion correctly each and every time. Whereas a human being, myself, when I'm moving somebody's legs, it's not going to be exactly the perfect each and every time because I don't operate that way.
Right.
But the machine does. So the Locomat's been extremely good, and we're very fortunate to have not only one, we have most of any place in the United States, if not the world, for our students, and we have, and it kind of opened up the doors for not just the Locomat, but we have robotics for occupational therapy, for the physical side, of course, and robotics is great, and I think only the future. And it's one tool of many. It's like making some people say, well, it's the icing. Well, yeah, but it's also what holds up.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back, and I want to talk with our second guest along with you. And don't go away. We got a lot more. Well, welcome back, everyone. I'm glad you're sticking with us. I want to bring in my second guest to join Mark Desmond and me. Her name is Valerie Caparino, and I met her at High Hopes. Her husband, Mel, I'll let her tell his TBI story, but he was a student at High Hopes. And I know that we provided scholarship for Mel. And I've gotten to know Valerie over the years, and I think their story is so dear because it's the story of a family. And I want her to just kind of say hello. Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Lindy and Mark.
And of course,
Thanks.
Mark knows her better than me because I think you've spent more time over the years.
Well, we do have a journey we've been on, so yes.
Absolutely.
Love
And
that.
I've watched your lovely marriage and family life. So when did he start going to High Hopes, Valerie?
It was December 2nd, 2002. So not too long after Ryan.
Yes, because Ryan didn't attend right away after his accident. So, and what happened to Mel that resulted in a TBI?
He had a heart attack, which is not the normal way to end up at High Hopes, but because of the lack of oxygen, severe lack of oxygen, it was kind of like he suffered a non-traumatic brain injury. So, and actually we found out about High Hopes in October. So his brain injury or his heart attack was on July 28th, 2002. It was in October that my, let's see, how do you say this? Sister-in-law's mother-in-law, Mel's sister, her mother-in-law had seen you and your dad and Ryan. I'm not sure if Ryan was there when she first saw the
Larry King
Live. Yes.
Larry King Live.
Yeah. And she called his sister and said, you have to get Mel over there. So we went on a tour in October and ended up coming just a couple months later. So we were blessed to get in right at almost the beginning.
So you have been, you cared for him for all this time, you and your family. I'm going to let the audience know that he recently passed away.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm remembering when that was. Was that in?
It was August 27th.
August. I was thinking it was September.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I correct myself. August 27th was when he had his stroke. September 3rd was when he passed away. Sorry.
Right. And I was shocked because I didn't think, that was imminent.
No, none of us
but
did.
No, no. So it was quite a loss, but your story has been so profound. Your family and what has happened in his life. He's been in High Hopes unable to talk. 19 years or 18?
Yes, it was 18 years that he um, didn't communicate other than a yes and no. We could do a yes and no, so we could ask him questions, but knowing anything further, we didn't have that yet.
Yeah, and I didn't have any way of knowing from seeing him at High Hopes. Was he hearing? Was he responding in any way? He wasn't talking.
Right.
But did you get any glimpses that he was hearing you during those times and understanding what was going on?
Yes, because he had developed, and interestingly, this really became evident at High Hopes, because he had an appropriate laugh. He started to laugh. And so, when someone laughs at something that was just said, then you knew that it was, he was being at least that level of comprehension.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was always a jokester. He loved to tease. And so laughter was one of the biggest ways he could communicate at that point.
Right. So you could definitely, that would motivate you to keep talking to him.
Right.
And assuming that he could hear and understand.
Yes.
He wasn't able to convey anything outwardly other than laugh.
Right. Yeah. And he was very sleepy in the first few months. I mean, I would say maybe even years. A lot of closed eyes. And, as I learned about brain injury and stuff, that, I came to understand that a little bit more. But then he gradually became more alert and,
and stronger and healthier.
Yes.
Mark, how did you work with Mel there at High Hopes? What kind of things did you focus on?
A lot of things. First of all, when Mel came to the program, all you had to do is look at Mel's eyes, and you can know he was there. And laughing. I'm glad Mel was there to laugh at some of my jokes.
Not everybody else appreciated your jokes.
Not just laughed at him. He was the one that kind of had the insight to pick up on the subtleties of some of the jokes.
Yeah, that's true.
Others did not.
Yeah.
And he would also laugh at comments of our other students.
Oh, yeah.
That Mel would laugh at and get a big kick out at the same time. So,
so would you put him in your robotics and work with his body that way, or?
Yes, he had a full day of being in the program. Mel was in our physical programs, occupational therapy, robotics, of course. Mel was up standing and taking steps. We worked on, not all at once, through a process.
Right.
Yeah. Did he do the local mat?
Yes, he did all sorts of things, mostly the quadricizer.
Yeah.
And
the Arjo walker.
Arjo, which is
if people don't know what these things are, and if we don't have time to describe them, they can go to High Hopes. And what is your website?
highhopes.ws, or you can just Google High Hopes brain injury, strokes, what have you. It'll come right up. We're located in Southern California, Tustin.
Yeah. So the Arjo walker is more like something it supports you while you're taking steps, and he could have help with people helping with his legs while he is in an upright position, right? Yeah. And the local mat is actually robotic legs wrap around your legs, and they actually motor your legs while you're on a treadmill.
And the local mat gives feedback, both feedback and recorded feedback. Also records everything. So in that locomat is the person's from beginning to where they are today.
You've got a lot of those wonderful machines, upper body extremities also, for people whose arms are not cooperating.
Yes. Yeah. Mel used a Rio, they called it.
For the upper body?
Yes.
So that
And a
would be
couple
on
of
your
them.
website. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so important, even if they're not able to move their bodies themselves, that we at High Hopes and in therapy, they can move their bodies even with the help of robotics. I'm going to take another break. These segments go by so fast, but I will be right back. Please stay with us and hear more.
For the destruction, they waited in the noonday hour. If we walk together, little children, we won't ever have to worry.
So we are back, and I'm visiting with Mark Desmond from High Hopes Head Injury Program and Valerie Caparino, and talking about your husband, Mel, Valerie. I mentioned that he passed, and Mark and I attended the most amazing memorial service that you and your family held. And I watched it again recently, and I tear up every time because it's so beautiful. I wish that service could just be shared with the world, especially people that have a TBI loved one, because the things that you shared, it's just, it makes something so sad so beautiful. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about your girls and the way the family helped. And the fact is, I don't know, did you mention that Mel was a pastor?
No, not yet. He was,
He
I
was
haven't
loved by a
mentioned it.
lot of people.
yes, he
So
was. He
Tell
always
us a little
knew.
about Mel.
Yeah. Well, we were high school sweethearts. And ever since that time, he knew that he wanted to be a pastor. Even though he really, looking back, he didn't have that strong of a relationship with the Lord at that time. But he just knew that that's where he wanted to go. And so God led him on that journey. He learned about what it means to really become a Christian in high school. And then he shared that with me. We both committed our life to Jesus, and we moved forward. And as we got married, he went to seminary. Then we started having, I like to say I have 4 beautiful girls, and they all grew up with a crazy dad who loved to do lots of things. And when he started a church in 1987, our youngest wasn't even born yet, but the older ones were, elementary, junior high, and we had, as you mentioned in the service, the number of people that he impacted through the years was amazing, even to me. And so we were blessed. We had, and all of that heart attack happened at a time when you thought, why now? Things were so, things were going so well. And yet, for some reason, we had to trust that God allowed that. And the girls stepped up. And of course, my youngest was only 13. So she was kind of, she was definitely in-house. The other girls were also, I think there was only one that was on their way out because of, age. Well, like, come to think of it, that explained that my oldest she had gotten married in June. She had gotten married in June, and he had his heart attack in July. Fortunately, they were close by. So all 4 girls were around, and at various times, because our journey's been 21 years, they have, they've all moved away at some point,
Mhm.
and come back, so that, greatly impacted our, um, our caregiving, you know. Um, and then there was one point when all three of them, not all three, uh, three of them were at, out of state. And so when they came, it came to the point where I realized, no, you know what? I'm getting older. And so I
We
kind of
needed some help.
put that call out and said, hey, anybody want to come home?
Yeah.
So and they all did. Boy, let me tell you, in 2015, they moved back, the ones that were out of
Maybe.
state. Then they kind of just on a schedule. We did have extra caregivers. We had like a couple, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours per day. And then one of the caregivers started coming with me to High Hopes because I was, needing a little extra help myself. So we just made that adjustment. They pitched in, and
Well, they were so inspirational when I listened in the service, and then all four of them were standing up together, and something felt very familiar to me. 4 daughters, and they also
yes,
singing. They
yeah,
have beautiful voices, and
Yeah.
then in one of
they
the
got that from Mel.
well, on one of the videos, we heard him singing,
Yeah,
and I went, my dad is practically a pastor. I feel like I'm one of
yes,
those
he
girls.
is.
So, but his beautiful family depictions and the things that they said about him were
Oh.
so heartwarming. And I just commend you. But then I want to take time because I want you to talk about what happened in the last 3 and a half
yeah.
years or so that changed everything for you.
Yes.
And
And
it all iPad.
it all started at High Hopes, actually, even many years before, because we were assigned to a computer class, and we discovered that it ended up being better to work on an iPad. And so through a drawing app, I would help support his arm, and I would guide him to write letters. So that went on for many years, not just letters, words. A lot of times it was his name. And so at that point, we were, I had not ever asked him to lead it himself, but
Make the letters himself. You were
right.
Yeah.
So it was actually in July 2019. I started asking him, do you think you could guide the letters? And it was very hard to read, not almost illegible.
Yeah.
But it got better, and we started to be able to. And then when his family, and his mother passed away in November of 2019, and at High Hopes, I asked him, "Would you like to write something would you like to have a word of greeting for your mom?" And he was highly motivated, able to write a very simple few words. Welcome, let's pray. And it was legible. My nephew was leading the service, and I said, "Can you read this?" And he goes, "Yeah." So it was, again, just a few words. And
where does the iPad come in?
The iPad comes
We're going to run out of time here. So
so sorry. February, Christine at High Hopes, one of the OTs, asked him if he'd like to. The project was to do a Valentine. The goal was to make dots of color with paint, and she would cut a heart out of it. And he started to do something on this paint or, tray that she had put the paper on, and I was guiding his hand, and he ended up painting a picture of 6 grandchildren, just faces, and wrote, "I love you" at the top. And so when I showed that to the family, because his birthday is also in February, when I showed it to them on his birthday, then of course everybody was excited. And somebody said, "What about using a stylus on the iPad?"
Yeah.
And so that's started
Tapping the
that journey.
letters.
Yes. And it was, it took a few days to get used to it. It was very slow. It remained fairly slow process, but it definitely improved. Do I have time to read just one thing that he wrote about high hopes?
I think so. Let's read it, and then we'll still talk about it in the next segment.
Okay.
But let's read this one.
Oh,
thing
okay.
He got typed out on the style with the stylus on the
Yes.
cat.
So I just want to read this first one because it relates so closely to. So this was in March 2021. He wrote, "I love high hopes. I like Mark. I am so glad that Mark believed in me. He would ask me how I was. I think he really can look into people's life and listen to how to help them. I laughed first at high hopes. I listened to Ryan and he made funny sounds like I used to before my heart attack. I love the people who helped me. Ryan's reach made it possible for me to participate, praying that more people will help other people to come to high hopes."
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
Well, on that note, let's all compose ourselves and we'll be right back.
Okay.
For the destruction, they waited in the noonday hour. If we walk together, little children, we won't ever have.
Well, I am so glad if you're still with us that you get to hear a little bit more of the story, the miracle of Mel. He just really, to not be able to communicate for 18 or 19 years, and then he gets an iPad and a stylus and paragraphs. What I was so amazed about was to realize his memory was so good. A lot of times with brain injury, people don't have the awareness that Mel had. He couldn't talk, but he knew about high hopes. He knew about the way Mark worked with him. He even knew that Ryan's Reach was helping out with a scholarship. That's awareness that a lot of the TBI students there wouldn't have. So now the family gets to communicate that clearly with Mel after all these years. And what was generally his mood?
Oh, this guy was always upbeat. In fact, I told the doctors because, we had those hints or outright suggestions that we just not pursue. And I said,
His
know what?
care,
He's
or you mean
his care?
unpleasant?
Yeah. In other words, just not. And at that point, I was like, "Are you? No, not doing that." And he said, or I said that he was always a no problem kind of guy, and that we were going to give him a chance. Because whenever somebody would, ask about something or want to do something, he'd say, "No problem," and I said, "We need to give him a chance." So it was definitely I'm really so glad that we did that. Yes.
Well, I can't remember exactly the first time I learned that he was communicating through this iPad and the things that he wrote, but I remember the gist of it was, "I am so blessed. God is so good to me."
Yes.
He hadn't been able to talk or move, but see, he understood the essence of who he was a child of God, and that was all well. It was well in his soul.
Yes. Yes. And that was what was such a blessing. In fact, I wanted to just share this. When afterwards, I went through a lot of his writings and printed them out so that we could have them at the memorial.
The things he wrote in the
Well,
last 3 years.
yeah, some of the things
Ah.
that he wrote in the 3 years, I couldn't even fit them all in. I mean,
Right.
I had to totally skip a year,
Uh-huh.
and not even then. So he wrote about his family. He prayed and prayed and prayed. And the biggest book is High Hopes. It's
Oh,
his artwork. It's his, which that was a blessing, and hard to believe that it was that clear. Sorry. Oh, he said, awesome work is done by organizations that have a good purpose. Like High Hopes is a great group of people who like to give to others the help they need in order to get better. I hope we can go back since that was during the pandemic.
I think his writings should be published.
Oh,
I think you should
this guy.
consider
Yeah.
that somebody that has been through what he's been through. I mean, I was so glad to go to the memorial service. I saw video of Mel before his injury, which I had never seen.
Oh, right. Yes.
They were just so vivacious and smiling, and you could just tell he could rally the group to do just either to have fun or get serious about what he was preaching. You just knew that he was a strong and energetic and a positive person. But what we didn't know, at least me, an outsider, was what was going on inside Mel during silent years.
Right.
And as soon as he was able to communicate what was revealed as that same vivacious, thankful, positive, committed man was unchanged and grateful and still had a word to teach people. I think he's just an amazing teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And his goal, one of his goals that he set at High Hopes, after he started writing, was to write a message. And though it didn't, it took a long time, but he was able to complete it. And that was from a Zoom class.
you mean like a sermon? When you say write a message, you could be thinking something short.
Right.
This was on the book of Isaiah or
Isaiah chapter 1. Yeah.
And so that took time. It takes time for somebody that doesn't have a brain injury to write a sermon. So of course, with him and his slower pace, it had to be a while. You know what? I'm going to shift right now. I want to just ask Mark. I wrote a question down. With all your many years of working with TBI, is there one thing? Well, I just have a couple moments. I have a couple minutes left for you. Just give me a couple minutes. What would you say to our audience about what it's been like to work with the TBI students?
Well, it's not for everybody. It's challenging work, been amazing work. The big thing like Val here is amazing. The whole family.
Yeah.
Either, which by the way, the Bev Dash, her grandson won the Bev Dash. Only two.
He won it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fundraiser that we've put on a fundraiser 5K and pancake breakfast. And so it was your grandson who won.
And all we're celebrating there. And so Mel has a great legacy. And Val still does Bible study class here at High Hopes every week. So you get to see a lot of wonderful and amazing people. God do see miracles and witness lots of them. And so the big thing is don't ever give up.
Yeah. And Val, you have just one thing. We're going to be ending here in 1 minute. And I just want to thank you for being on, both of you. But is there one last thing you would say to TBI families?
Exactly what Mark said. Don't give up.
Don't give
And
up.
I think always, whether you know it or not, always talk with them as though they understand.
Yes.
And use your big adult voice and you know,
Right.
just talk, because you never know. Like
Yeah.
you said, you may not have been able to tell that he could hear and understand, but he was all that time.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we were so blessed.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. And I'm so happy to get to share both of you with our TBI Talk audience. We're a new podcast. I hope we're going to grow. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and telling your story. I could talk so much longer, but we're out of time. But I do appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
So goodbye, everybody. We'll see you on the next TBI Talk.